Everyone can get back seated. We have quite a bit of questions. We have some online as well. We're going to try to give quick answers, inshallah ta'ala. As quick as we can while staying true to the question. So that if you have a question, you can tweet at adoption seminar, hashtag adoption seminar. So the hashtag is adoption seminar. So you can tweet there, and there are questions there, inshallah ta'ala. There are some questions there. All right, so are we good to go, guys? All right. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So there's a question, what if we know absolutely nothing about the newborn's name, parents, and so on and so forth, and how do we deal with that situation? That's where usually classically the way the ulama dealt with that is that they gave a sort of a generic name like Abdullah or Muhammad or something of that sort to fill that spot. So in that situation then the middle name, for example, could be Muhammad, Abdullah, something generic, and then the last name could still be the last name of the family. I'll just sort of do a rapid fire of 5 questions and then we'll go 5 questions. Do you find, actually this is a question for you, inshallah. In regards to fostering, adopting older children, how is the issue of mahram and physical contact and or hijab managed? Can an adoptive parent show physical affection to adult adoptive children? No, so that's where the issue of mahram does come in. So that's why I mentioned that's why I mentioned, if someone could get that before he gets in this. That's why I mentioned the opinion of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, which sort of opens that further. Look, when it's an older person, or when that was not fulfilled at a younger age, then show affection and in the emotional sense. You can definitely be nice and extra courteous and things of that sort, but definitely the laws of hijab would have to be observed at that point. To the Sheikh, when you say 2 years, are we to follow the lunar calendar or the solar calendar? It's the first time I've ever been asked that question. Good question. It doesn't matter, and in fact that's why a lot of the fuqaha, so Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala, Imam Abu Hanifa said that it's not an issue of a few months or a few days later or something of that sort. So it's not like hawlain has to be 2 years exactly, but something around 2 years as well, inshallah ta'ala. How do you deal with the mahram issue when you don't have kids or you can't breastfeed? So I think inshallah ta'ala that's the idea of seeking professional help, inshallah, to see if it's possible. Otherwise, again, then you maintain the laws of hijab, you maintain kindness, you do what's in your capacity. As was mentioned in the seminar, there are multiple ways, inshallah ta'ala, to support that cause. How do we show and express the same love to the adopted child once they have reached puberty and are non-mahram to the mother or father? I.e., if a mother has to wear hijab and not be able to touch plus hold her adopted son. Again, if it's solved at a young age, it's easier to do so, inshallah, but the same answer to the previous question, which is the idea of being kind while still observing the laws of hijab to the best of your ability, inshallah. And if it's still a child, even if it's older than 2 years old, in this situation it would be permissible, inshallah, to still take that opinion. I've been researching adoption for years and have been told that many of the children that are brought from overseas were abandoned by their mother, most likely because they are the product of zina. Is there anything Islamically we need to know, rulings plus knowing the parents, not knowing the parents, and do we tell the child their history? First and foremost, backwards cultural mentality. A child of zina, a child that was produced through adultery, is not a cursed child, and it's not the sin of that child, and that child was still born on fitrah, and there's no blame on that child. Sadly, in many cultures, that child is assigned a level of blame. The child had no say into how it was brought in this world, nor is that child accountable for any decisions that were made by parents and things of that sort. So the first answer to that is that a child that came from zina is not a cursed child, and you need to treat that child just like you treat any child. It's born on fitrah and it's pure. And again, that's the definition of a laqit in many situations. I mentioned that a mother abandons her child. Many times it's because it was from adultery, and that was to hide the shame. Go and dump the child in front of a masjid or a public place. Sadly, it is still done until today. So as far as not knowing who the parents were, you don't have to tell the child that they were born out of zina. Okay, you don't have to be explicit in that regard. The child just has to know that they're not biologically your children. That's all that it really is. If there's a way for them to know their lineage, then it's a good thing for them, inshallah ta'ala, to do so. So there's this question here. I have 4 kids. One of them is adopted. The adopted son is 10. The rest are 3 years old. When's a good time to tell the younger one thing? Okay. So as far as just telling one child that they're adopted and things of that sort, again, I'm not a psychiatrist. This is probably Sister Sada question, but everything that I've read on it says the sooner the better. The sooner the better. Solve that problem as soon as you can, inshallah ta'ala. Be compassionate. Allow them to realize that they're not going to be treated any differently or loved any less, and that doesn't make them any less your son or your daughter in the sense of family and love and so on and so forth. So just, it's good to get that done as quick as possible. Please discuss the fiqh of single women adopting. Technically, there's nothing wrong with a single woman adopting, but it's probably not the wisest decision in most situations. But I mean, technically, from a fiqhi perspective, it's not haram, but it's definitely one of those odder situations. But it's not necessarily haram in regards to adoption for that woman. Or can we make a foster child? Oh, okay. Can we make a foster child mahram as well? If so, are the mahram rulings for a foster child the same as an adoptive child? And what happens when that foster child is legally allowed and has reached the age of being able to adopt by a different family than ours? You can make any child mahram through rawa'ah. It doesn't have to be even in the context of adoption or foster care. It's just, do you want to do that, right? So many kids become mahram, especially in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, like Hamza and the Prophet ﷺ. Hamza radiallahu anhu was his brother through rida'ah. They breastfed from the same woman, but he was his uncle. That was something very common back then, to share a wet nurse and things of that sort. But so as far as it's concerned, it's not like if you breastfed the child, you have to keep the child in your house now. So for a foster child, the same rulings would apply that apply to the adopted child. I'm finishing my questions altogether, alhamdulillah, because I just want to hand it over to you. So what happens if a mother doesn't have milk to give to a child? So again, professional lactation expert. Is it wrong to adopt a non-Muslim child and raise them a Muslim? I think this goes to what Sister Sada said, which is that you should not force a conversion on that child, but live by example, inshallah ta'ala. And you hope, just like you hope with anyone else, that your example will bring that person to Islam. And religion should not be an obstacle for you showing compassion to any human being. So the Prophet ﷺ did not restrict it to Muslims or non-Muslims. And so if anything, the intention is to take care of an orphan. And you would hope, inshallah ta'ala, that in that situation that they would eventually become, I think I got all my questions. That they would eventually become Muslim by seeing your example. Alhamdulillah, I finished my rapid. I think I deserve a round of applause.
Wow, seriously.
So I'll pass it on to you, inshallah.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, I am glad that I'm not the only one fielding question. I don't know if I can match his speed, but I'll try and go speed racing. Who's my race car driver here? Okay, so the first question is, do I have to be a U.S. citizen or a legal resident to be a foster parent? As far as I know, you have to be legal in the United States. It is a, yes?
Yes, actually, I've been through the same situation for fostering. The state law does not require you to be a citizen, but many agencies only take citizen. At least one of the two parents has to be a citizen. There are only a handful of agencies that will work with you if you do not, both of the parents are not citizens. So I'm working on that. I'm myself.
You have to step back.
Can you repeat this?
Okay, the question is, do I have to be a U.S. citizen or a legal resident to be a foster parent? And the answer I'm getting from Brother Zishan, who has been involved in the training for fostering already, is that at least one of the foster parents has to be a U.S. citizen, which is the same requirement for international adoption, that one of the adoptive parents has to be a U.S. citizen and the other preferably permanent resident. And when I started my journey, I was not a citizen yet, but we were able to proceed with international adoption because my husband was. Okay, can a single parent be a foster parent? I think the short answer is yes. And you've addressed it from a fiqh perspective, so I'm not going to go into details. How can I sign up to adopt a child domestically? You can go to the Department of Family Protective Services link. We will share the links for you. If you've signed up on our sign-in sheet, we will share useful links with everybody who signed up in the email and send you the follow-up information. Is there a cost associated with domestic adoption of children from CPS? Short answer is yes. It's about $2,000, which the bulk of it is reimbursable from the state after you complete the process. A minimum of $1,200 is reimbursed to you. On average, the cost is $1,200 to $1,600, but in some cases it has been as high as $2,000. So the bulk of it is reimbursable. And you get a stipend per child per month for the foster care. Which families are generally in the system to serve as foster parents? It is wealthy families? Definitely not. Most families that are foster families are middle to lower income families, and a lot of them are single mothers. Actually, if you ask CPS for that specific information, their average household income does not on average exceed $50,000 to $60,000. So no, you do not have to be wealthy to be a foster parent. How do you deal with behavioral problems when adopting foster or fostering older minors who come from difficult and abusive pasts? This is a concern, and it is a very valid concern. We didn't have time to go into the depths and details of it. CPS orientation covers this aspect in detail, and they also provide services with behavioral specialists. And when a child is matched to you, you have the opportunity to select the level and intensity of any specialized services for that child. So you have a say in what level of behavioral problems or medical issues you're willing to manage. What is the minimum age for the child until he or she is ready for custody? Can we adopt a baby who is about 0 to 3 months old? Absolutely. Most children placed for adoption in Morocco are in the 0 to 3 month range. Most children placed for adoption in Pakistan are newborns. I got her at 1 day, I got her at probably 3 days. So yes, 0 is the age. And in fact, I remember telling my neighbor's son that she's 0, and he was like, how can she be 0? She's got to be something. So how quickly can you adopt a refugee foster child? This is a question I really think is going to need a little bit more time, because most refugee minors who are coming into the United States are not available for adoption. They are only available for foster care because they're coming from disruption of life situations, war-torn situations. They may have been separated from their families, and their families may be alive and not necessarily living in the same area. They are not available for adoption. They are only available for foster care, and if they are under 18 years old, they need a family. So the idea that there are 200 children sitting in a mosque somewhere in New York, and they are between the 0 to 2 year range, that was misinformation of the highest order, and we've spent time and extraordinary amount of energy trying to counter that misperception. As much as we want to have all newborns be available for adoption, the reality is that there are more older children coming through for foster care, especially when they're refugee minors. Thank you. Can you adopt refugee minors? Answer is no. What is the minimum income required? Okay, this is for you.
Okay.
I
thought it was finished.
Yeah, I thought so too, but I didn't see part 3 of that question. If I adopt a male child who is above 18, first of all, you do not get to adopt a child over 18. If a child is 18 years old, they're not available for adoption. You can become their family through other means. You can obviously offer them a home, but there is no legal adoption for over 18 years old. So that question is a moot point. This is the last question I want to answer. Okay. Do you find interracial adoption from different backgrounds more difficult on the child? It's a constant reminder that they're different from their parents or siblings. This is something I want to address directly. There are no two ways to love a child. I have not found any issues. I know people who are Caucasian and they've adopted children from Haiti and Cambodia, and anybody who knows about Angelina Jolie knows that they have a international village in their home, and I don't think there is any difference in how those children are treated, and there shouldn't be, because there is no two ways to love a child. If it is your child, you cannot differentiate between them. How does the child feel? Well, that's a different subject. I know from several people, especially Korean and Chinese adoptees who are adopted by Caucasian families. That's the most relevant statistic I can find. Or African American children brought up in in white homes, or vice versa. Typically, the idea is to preserve the cultural identity of the child. And interestingly enough, when we had the orientation with CPS, the lady who was conducting that seminar gave the example of African American hair. And she said African American hair is curly and kinky and different from your South Asian hair. And if you try to straighten it out and wash it like you would a Caucasian or a South Asian child, you're going to destroy their head. So in that analogy, she expressed the sentiment that when a child comes into your care, accept the child as is, where they are, instead of insisting that they become like you. Their life experience, their identity, their background is not the same as the children who were born in your home. And for you to expect them to be identical in behavior and response is an unreasonable expectation. So be understanding and compassionate. Adopting a child whose mother has died but has a father and other siblings and a home to live, would that be as rewarding as adopting a child who does not have any home or parents? Yes. It is better to adopt a child that you know to be an orphan rather than to, and sometimes people make a child for adoption. There's instances where surrogacy and other kinds of options are considered just so you can have a child to have in your home, and that's not. Finding a child who is already an orphan is much more rewarding than going and making a baby just so you can adopt. Okay, sorry, my helper is helping me. Are there any classes or lectures we need to attend before offering to become an adoptive or foster parent? Okay, this is one of those general information sessions. It is not a requirement, but if you want to do this right, getting the awareness and understanding of what your options are is very helpful. Before you go and jump into one pool, you have to figure out what the temperature of the other pools is and how it suits your life. So it is advisable to do your research, attend information sessions before you jump into one option or the other. When is the orientation in Dallas? When is it? It is one planned soon. Where did our brother go? He's my CPS contact. Okay, there you are. Yes, sir. Are you working with CPS to set up an orientation session for the Muslim community?
Yes, actually we have a sister who works for CPS Dallas.
Awesome.
So she has baby herself, so she was a little off from the, she's not available right now, but Alhamdulillah we have her. ICNA Dallas is working with her. She is on our advisory board. We consult her. We have another sister. In the past we resolved 2 CPS cases.
Excellent.
Muslim cases, and she is expert on the legal side.
Yeah.
She deals with the lawyers and whatnot on the adoption and on the fostering side. So we have some people on the board.
Yeah, and I just wanted to let you all know that I came from Arlington. My name is Azam Sheikh, and the recent case that happened with the 4 kids, we are in touch with the CPS as we speak, and I have been here in this metroplex since early 80s. So we have dealt with so many different cases, and so inshallah we're going to try to see if we can set up a one training session for people from Arlington, Fort Worth, Mansfield, Kennedale, all these areas in one location, inshallah.
Excellent. So, brother, you will be the point of contact for that, and Saira will connect with you, and brother Zishan also connect with them locally. I can't address that question any better than the local people can. Okay, do we have to meet the biological parents? Are you obliged to? No, you are not obliged to meet the biological parents, especially if it is an unsafe situation. Your visitation is typically in public places. There's a lot of McDonald's that have been this venue for the children to have supervised visitation with biological parents. Okay, next. How long is it going to take before a child can be adopted? That's up to the family. When they get started, once they get started, there is usually a logical process that ends within a reasonable period of time. If a mother does not or cannot breastfeed, can an aunt, sister-in-law breastfeed? I think the answer is yes, and there are instances where an aunt has breastfed the children and made the daughters mahram for the father, but I would defer that to you. That's my stack. I'm done.
You're done? MashaAllah. That was pretty fast. MashaAllah. Give her a round of applause. Good. All right, so I have 3 questions then, inshallah. One from Twitter, and then these 2. If the mother does not want to and can't breastfeed, can an aunt, sister-in-law breastfeed? The answer is yes, but again, the laws of mahram need to be studied properly. Why? Because if my sister, I don't actually have a physical sister, but if my sister, hypothetically, was to breastfeed a child, that child does become mahram to me, right? But now here's the thing, that child will become mahram to me. I guess it's going to, you just have to keep in mind cousins are still not going to be mahram and things of that sort. So that's why I was thinking, like, if it's the wife's sister, then it's not going to make that child necessarily mahram to me, right? So there are just different things that need to be observed there, especially because you're looking to make mahram for the entire family, the brothers and so on and so forth, the father, the brothers, and so on and so forth. Can you adopt, which is best to adopt, international versus domestic? Seriously, anything. We're really lagging behind as a Muslim community, so inshallah, if we can do anything, I think it's a positive step. Obviously, with charity in general, أَقْرَبُونَ أَوْلَى بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, those that are closest to you are more deserving of your kindness. So with charity in general, domestic charity is preferable to international charity, but adopting an international child is a great reward, inshallah ta'ala. It's a great deed to do. The Twitter question was, are children whose father abandoned them considered orphans? Listen, this is one of the main reasons why I covered all the different ahadith about the 2 fingers in paradise. It's not about the technicalities. You're raising a child that otherwise would be very vulnerable. You're being a father figure to a child that otherwise would not have a father figure. You are raising an orphan. Okay? A mother, a single mother, is basically taking the reward, once again, of raising an orphan. She is doing that part. A person who does that with their own 2 children is getting that amazing reward, inshallah ta'ala. So the point is that someone might ask, and I've been asked this question, right? Let's say that I married a woman and she had children and the dad is a deadbeat. Is it like I'm raising an orphan? Yes. All the ahadith clearly apply to you as well, because the Prophet ﷺ clearly was addressing the spirit of it and not the technicalities of it. That's how our religion functions. So abshir, inshallah. Glad tidings to those that do such a thing, and may Allah reward you all. Jazakumullah khairan for such, I really, really want to appreciate you for being here, Sister Sara, mashallah, and your agency. I think it's so amazing that we finally have a Muslim adoption agency. May Allah bless you and reward you, and every child that is rescued through this effort, may Allah allow it to be from your mizan hasanat, you and your husband, inshallah, and your beautiful 2 daughters, may Allah bless them. She's now my friend, right? She gave me a big hug, alhamdulillah, and you're my friend too, inshallah. But we have to talk, because she's been talking to me the whole time, so can you come sit next to me too? Okay, alhamdulillah. So you want to thank them for coming?